Okay, what I want to talk about now is how to get physical with a girl. And the first thing I want to point out is that in day game versus other forms of game, like say night game, physicality is actually less important. Okay, so you'll see, especially when we get to the infield section, that in a lot of the sets that I do, I am not actually getting all that physical with a girl. What I'm doing instead is I'm escalating in other ways. I'm escalating the content of the conversation, making it more and more sexual or more intimate. Or what I'm doing is I'm escalating the venue. I'm going from the place where we meet to a place that's sort of like an instant date and then to home. And I think that's actually the more effective and more important way to escalate during the daytime. But that said, it is still important that you know how to escalate. And it's especially important that, once you do get her on a date or back to your place, that you can escalate from there. So the physical escalation is still very critical. But understand, in a nighttime club type of environment, physicality is going to be at a premium, and moving them around and escalating the conversation, less important. In day game, the conversation is paramount, and moving them around is very, very important. So go in knowing that. That said, with physical escalation, I cannot emphasize to you how critical it is to have the right mindset and attitude, and to essentially just like have a pair of balls. Right? When I was learning game for the first probably 6 months that I went out on dates, I came into game as a virgin. I didn't know what I was doing, got a lot of phone numbers, went on a lot of dates. I had a really, really hard time with getting physical, mostly because I didn't give myself permission. When I started out, I was at the stage when I would have to get up my courage and breathe deeply before I could even touch a girl on the arm, because I felt like I was imposing on her personal space or I was doing something bad or awful to her. Understand this, if a girl's on a date with you, or even if a girl's staying and talking to you for a period of time, it's very likely she likes you, and it's very likely that she actually wants you to get physical. Also understand that getting physical, touching someone within a conversational context is totally normal and natural, okay? Even with people that you're not hitting on, even with your guy friends or whatever, sometimes you'd touch them on the shoulder, tap them on the back, that kind of stuff. So understand that casual touch is totally normal, and you need to just go for it, all right? You need to just do it, just trust that it's okay, and trust this. If you go to touch the girl who clearly likes you, and she isn't okay with it, you're not the weird one who did something awkward. She's the weird one for being extraordinarily prudish, okay? That's very, very important. Understand that touch is normal and natural, and understand also you need to go for it, all right? I'm going to say this again when we get to the kissing section, but I say it in the touching section as well, which is I've never really lost a girl from trying to get physical or trying to kiss a girl when done in the right way, okay? If you do it in a non-creepy, non-weird way, there is no reason for it to be received badly, okay? Now I'm going to teach you a little bit about what is that non-creepy, non-weird way, and that's very important as well. And the key concept I want you to have here is a concept I call 2 steps forward, 1 step back. All right. If you're constantly trying to get physical, if all you're doing is getting physical and then more physical and then more physical, yes, the girl has every reason in the world to be uncomfortable with that. But if you get a little bit physical, back off, chill out a little bit, go a little bit further, back off, chill out a little bit, and keep escalating. Like I said, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And 2 and 1 is not like a golden ratio or something like that. It's just the idea that you want to be pushing forward and then pulling back. You want to pressure on, pressure off, escalate, let it breathe, okay? It's a rhythm, it's a pace. And the other thing is, if you ever do get any kind of negative reaction to your escalation, immediately back off, chill out, go back to a more normal conversation, and then you can escalate again at a later time, okay? Here's another key concept as far as game in general goes. No meaning resistance, but no doesn't mean no, it means not yet or not now. Okay, there are many, many girls that initially rejected me and then went home with me. There are many girls that were uncomfortable with me getting physical at one point in the interaction, and then we ended up having sex. But what happened was they needed more time. They needed to get to know me better. They needed me to, convey my personality a little bit better, more time for comfort, etc. And then later on, they were okay and they were ready, or maybe even they would escalate on me at that point. Okay, so understand that it is a bit of a process and there is some patience. And it's not like like with a guy, we kind of look at a girl and we're like, either I'd sleep with her or I wouldn't. Girls are not like that. They're not like a light switch where it's on or off. They're kind of like a dimmer switch where it's like, you're constantly making it brighter as you turn. And you have to get, you have to turn it far enough. So it is a process. It does take some time. Next concept in escalation, and this works again for all forms of escalation, but specifically here with the physical escalation, is change her mood, not her mind. The way that you're going to sleep with a girl is not by convincing her. You don't present like a lengthy legal brief, have an argument with all your bullet points, and show her that you have an airtight case for her sleeping with you. Even if you were to do that, because it's argumentative, she would probably be turned off and not want to sleep with you. Okay? The way that women are convinced, and actually really the way that most people are convinced in most things, but in particular women, is emotionally first, and then they justify it logically. Okay? So appeal to the emotions first. So what does this mean? It means if you try and escalate in a particular way, say that you try and touch a girl and she's not like so okay with it, don't argue with her about why it's okay to touch, or don't try and go even further just to prove that you're alpha or something like that. Instead, back off, chill out, and then have fun. Joke around, kid around, don't make a big deal about it. Don't act butthurt about the fact that she, gave you a minor bit of rejection or resistance. Have a good interaction, get her in a good mood, and then try again. Which actually brings me to the next point, which is escalate on high points. When things are going well, that's when you want to try these things. When she's giggling and laughing and clearly likes you, a little like, oh, you're so cute, hug her, makes total sense. If you're in a moment where there's a lot of tension or it's very quiet or nothing's really happening, and then out of nowhere you just decide to start groping her, that's going to be weird and awkward, okay? So you want to escalate on high points. Little advanced note. You don't always want to escalate on high points as you get better and better. Sometimes on high points, if you want to get really good at game, what you want to do is actually push her away on the high point, because pushing her away on the high point, that's going to get her to chase you even more. But understand that both of these moves, escalations and pushaways, basically intense emotional moves and things that really move the set forward one way or another, should be done on high points, should be done when things are going well. When things aren't going well, that's when you offer value, have a good conversation, have a good interaction, wait for that next high point, and then again, you can escalate or move the set forward in whatever other way. Okay, so you want to make your moves on those high points when the interaction is good. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about the general attitudes and philosophies of how to get physical with a girl, I'm going to get a little more technical into exactly how I personally go about doing it. And the technique I use is something that I've dubbed invisible escalation. The idea here is that you're able to escalate very, very quickly, but it doesn't seem like anything's happening. And if you do get some sort of rejection, it almost looks like it didn't happen. Okay? And the secret to how I do that is instead of making one big move, I make maybe 5 or 6 little moves. Okay, so for example, instead of reaching out and just groping the girl and hugging her, what I might do is I might, as I'm talking, just kind of hold my hand out like this. And if she takes the hand, great, I would sort of slowly pull her in. If she comes slowly in, I would maybe put my hand up like this. If she comes further, then I'd go ahead and hug her. So instead of just reaching out of nowhere and hugging her, what I did is I did a lot of little things, each of which were very small in themselves. And when I put my hand out, if she didn't take my hand, I would just drop it and keep talking. If she took my hand and I started pulling and she resisted, I would definitely stop pulling. I might even drop the hand completely and start over again. Okay, so any step along the way, it's possible I could get a rejection, but it would be so minor and so subtle that it's like we wouldn't even really know that it had occurred, and the conversation would go on without, all right? So there's no awkwardness whatsoever, and there's no risk. And so the way that I like to escalate, I call it slow and steady wins the race. Instead of going for big moves that are these ballsy things that might get rejected, instead is these tiny little minuscule moves that you can barely even notice, but they're absolutely constant. Almost from the start of the interaction, there's some sort of constant move. Now, again, in day game, physicality is less important, so it may wait a little while and then the physicality comes later. But in other forms of escalation, I'm doing this as well. So I'm either escalating conversationally or escalating the logistics or escalating physically, and I'm always looking to escalate in some way, as long as the interaction is good, okay? When the interaction is bad, when there's any kind of resistance or tension or awkwardness, then I'm not escalating in any way. But as soon as it's good, as soon as it's flowing, as soon as we have a really good vibe together, one of the escalation models or methods, whether it be verbal, physical, or logistical, i.e. moving her around, I'm trying to do that all the time, okay? And then as long as it's good, I continue to escalate. As soon as it isn't good, back off, chill out, get it good again, and then I continue to escalate. So I have these interactions that are very constantly, very predictably moving towards sex, right? I like to say that when a girl's talking to me, she's in what I call imminent danger of being fucked, right? Because if she just things stay positive and I keep escalating, that's the direction it's going in. It's a sure thing, okay? And again, anytime it gets negative, back off, chill out. Once it gets positive again, you escalate some more. So it's slow and steady, constant escalation, but each little bit of escalation is so tiny that she would almost feel ridiculous objecting to it, given what's happened before. 2 other ideas that go along with this. First is you don't want to escalate just to escalate. There are certain forms of touch that don't matter. So for example, if you're just getting comfortable or getting her comfortable with you touching her on the forearm, sure, that's okay. A little hand on the low back, fine, just quickly. But what you don't want to do is just keep like touching her and touching her and touching her like you're like playing tag with her body, touching just to touch, okay? Touching should have a purpose behind it. And one of my good friends elucidated this point, expressed this point very well by saying the term boners, not kino. Kino meaning touch or kinesthetics, right? So boners meaning getting aroused, getting erect, that kind of thing. So the idea is he wants to touch the girl in a way that's going to arouse her, which really means he wants to touch a girl in a way that arouses him. So he wants there to be some sensitivity, some tenderness, some arousal, some sensuality in the way he touches a girl. So for example, if I was going to touch a girl, I wouldn't be like tapping her forearm or tapping her tricep, tapping her forearm, tapping her tricep, tapping her shoulder. Like that's not doing anything. Like just touching a girl like this, like playing tag, is not doing anything. But on the other hand, if say for example you just like ran your hand subtly up and down a girl's arm, something like that, that would be fine. Or say you're touching her hand and you just kind of like, like give a little of this. It seems almost like potentially creepy when I do it to myself, but it is a subtle little move, it's a gesture, that kind of stuff. So you want, or even just like holding hands lightly is totally fine, okay? You want to be doing things that are sensual in nature, not just touching for the sake of touching. This may seem obvious, but I see students do it so often. That's what we call the like, the pointless hand on the lower back, where they just like the guy's holding the girl and just keeps the hand on the lower back for like half an hour straight. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything, all right? What he needs to do is escalate to something that actually is doing something, arousing him and arousing the girl, or back off and start escalating again. And that's another great point, which is as soon as you started to escalate, as soon as you escalated to a certain level, you can always escalate to that level again, so you don't need to be needy about it, okay? Once you've held the girl's hand like for a bit and walked around, you can drop her hand, go do your thing, and then later on you can always grab her hand again and start holding hands with her if you want to. You don't have to cling to whatever you've achieved with the jaws of life. You can let it go. If you can't let it go, you didn't have it in the first place. Okay, so understand that too. Again, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Not only is it push forward, and then stop pushing forward, it actually is release. Like let there be a period without touch. If you're doing things really well, when you drop the physicality, she should miss the physicality more than she felt awkward with whatever physicality was going on. The second you drop it, she should actually want it back, and that makes the next escalation actually easier and easier. Okay, so that's very critical as well. Last tip on physicality. And this is a general concept as well, but it is something that I'm very technically aware of, which is you want to escalate in a way that maintains the sexual tension rather than reducing it. Meaning you don't want to be obvious and you don't want to be a foregone conclusion, okay? So let me give you some examples of this. I talked a minute ago about, you've held the girl's hand and it's okay to let it go. Think about if you didn't do that. Think about if once you grab the girl's hand, like say you're on a date, you grab the girl's hand like half an hour into the date, and then for the next 5 hours, you just keep holding her hand. How does she feel? She feels like she has some needy thing clinging to her, and she has no doubt that you like her. She has no doubt that you'd have sex with her, no doubt that you'd bend over backwards for her. So all the tension, all the intrigue, all the sort of like what's going to happen, all the excitement is lost because she knows how the movie ends. It's too obvious. Same thing happens a lot with, guys do this with kissing a lot, where once they've kissed a girl, they just want to keep kissing and kissing and kissing, and they're like, they want the entire rest of the interaction to be kissing. They feel like if they stop kissing, things somehow went backwards. That's not the case, okay? Actually, one of the best ways to kiss a girl, or best things to do when kissing a girl, is kiss a little bit and then pull away and leave her actually wanting more, so that on the next kiss, she'll be the one initiating, or at least she'll be the one that's more enthusiastic about it. That way, you're escalating in a way that instead of killing the sexual tension, increases the sexual tension. And that's the key. Every escalation you do, whether it be physical, logistical, or verbal, should be increasing the sexual tension rather than killing it, right? An example from verbal, just to make this point, would be if you say to a girl, "You're very cute," that actually is a verbal escalation. But if throughout the entire time that you're hanging out with her, you're like, "You're very cute, you're so hot, there's something so cute about you, you're just so good looking, I just like your eyes, you're so well dressed." If you say too many of those, it becomes boring, it loses its impact. She knows she can have you, and she's just like, blah, who is this guy that's like so wrapped up in me? Okay, so it's the same thing with any form of escalation. You need to do it in such a way that you maintain the sexual tension instead of decreasing it. And if anything, ideally actually increase the sexual tension. Okay, now I'm going to show you some examples of physical escalation in the daytime. And as I mentioned, I don't get as physical in day game as I would, say, in night game. It's not as important. In fact, a lot of times I escalate in other ways. Like I escalate by being more verbally intentful, or I escalate by moving the girl around. So those are actually my preferred forms of escalation. But there are times when it is appropriate to escalate during the day. So I'm going to show you a few examples. And I want you to notice in particular how it's very smooth. There's nothing forced in what I'm doing in these examples.
No, would you be willing to go tomorrow?
We could hang out tomorrow.
Okay.
What do you? Yeah, we could.
My birthday is actually tomorrow. So
happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old are you, babe?
Thanks.
Oh, you're adorable.
I'll be 22. I'm a youngin. So we're just gonna like hang out on Mill tonight, and then we're gonna go to Scottsdale. Babies.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I will be there. Let's do numbers.
Yeah, just I'll put my number in your phone. You can text me. Did I give you my number?
No, you didn't. Not yet.
Okay, can I just enter it?
Yeah, you can do it.
That's easier. So my name. Phone number. Okay.
Cool. Do you remember my name?
I don't.
Oh my god.
Text
Oh my
me.
god. It was nice. It was nice meeting you. Take care. I thought it was special for a minute, but now I realize it all meant nothing. Todd.
Todd.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Okay. I'm really bad with names. For like
It's okay. I'm actually about 50-50 on whether I even told it to you in the first place.
I don't think you did.
I was just
to be completely honest.
I was just thinking, how could I fuck with this girl just
I
a
was
little
like,
more? And,
I don't really remember.
Okay, so text me something good.
I will.
You bet.
I will.
Come here. You're wait. I need the vouch. Come here. You. Okay, you know this girl well. You were roommates, right?
Yes. We were.
Is she going to steal my heart and/or kidneys?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Definitely. I might need a kidney,
which is the bigger risk?
Probably the kidneys.
Oh shit! It was nice meeting you. Take care.
I
mean, I still think you're a wonderful person.
I'm a good person, I swear.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
I'm a good person.
All right.
Have fun tonight.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
That makes sense. Oh wait, let's walk and talk, shall we? I know you don't want to walk, but it's only that far. Can we get an airplane? Is that what you said?
Escalator.
There is an escalator. Yeah, the ups and downs you can handle by escalator, but you might have to walk something like 150 yards. It is less far than the walk to Mandalay Bay, though. So I'm actually saving you walk, as far as that goes. I'm making your life easier and more fun at the same time. Don't be a troublemaker. Come here. I will make your life easier and harder all at once.
Sure.
Easier because it'll be fun and luxurious. Harder because you're gonna, just don't get attached, okay?
Oh, okay.
All right. Say, oh no. Oh.
Like, I need to leave.
It's okay. You can go if you'd like. I mean, I'm enjoying you so far, so I'd be like a little sad if you left. But if you really need to, you are, you're welcome. I would never twist your arm.
Well, I am leaving
Tomorrow.
inevitably tomorrow.
It's okay. I think here's actually between you and I. So I think you're cute. Obviously, you enjoy me as well. So that's all very positive. I think we should just have fun and let the grown-ups handle the serious stuff. Is that fair? So I don't want us to necessarily get all intimate and go make the sex tonight or anything like that. I want us to just hang out, have fun. We can see what develops. I mean, I find you attractive, but I don't want you to think of me as a foregone conclusion. I don't want you to just use me for my body.
Wow.
So I'd appreciate it if you treat me like, a person.
Being?
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm attractive, but I have a brain.
Everyone appreciates that, being treated like a human being.
I'm not gonna lie. There are times when I've wanted to just be objectified. Don't tell me there's not a time you wished a guy would just pull your hair and, be a little sexual with you and just forget that you were a smart girl for a minute. Maybe. It's not such a bad thing. But I want you to know, I still barely know you, so, I think we should take it marginally slow, at least. Okay? Thank you. I feel much safer now. Thank you. All right, so in those examples, though you see that, So in those examples, first of all, I want you to notice it's not a ton of physical escalation. That's not really necessary for the daytime. I'll do that on a date or I'll do that when I get the girl home. But do notice that the escalation I do is smooth, it's slow, and it's very calibrated. Instead of going for one big thing, like a big hug or something like that, it's little subtle gestures, like a little hold of the hand, a slight pull in, put her hand around your back, little things like that that occur incrementally but quickly. So you can get a long way very, very quickly and with very, very little risk. And that very little risk part is very important. I also want to reemphasize that a lot of the escalation in daytime is verbal or logistical. So in particular, have a look also at the how to do an instant date section, because that's another form of escalation that's very, very critical. Here are some exercises you can use to help you with learning how to get physical. Ideally, over time, getting physical will become natural, organic, normal. It'll just become part of who you are and what you do. But along the line, as you're learning, it helps to have some exercise. So here's some things that you can do. First one is go around and just give high fives to people. Just walk around one day and just give a high five to everyone. Man, woman, child, whatever. Just high five, high five, high five. Just get used to starting a conversation, having that little bit of physicality, being willing to put yourself out there a little bit. All right, I mean, it's a little weird and awkward to ask a stranger for a high five, but I bet most people will do it. All right, and it's going to create a really fun vibe around what you're doing, and it's going to create a good, positive social air around everything, as well as being a catalyst to starting you getting physical. Second exercise is what we call the 5 physical moves exercise. What you're going to do here is I want you to make a list of 5 physical things you could do with a girl. So for example, a high five could be one, handshake could be one, hug could be one, kiss could be one, pick her up could be one, you could spin her like a dance move, things like that. Any of those. In fact, you could just use that list, or if you have other things that you particularly like to do, feel free to throw them in. What you're going to do is I want you to order them from 1 to 5, 1 being the thing you are most comfortable doing, 5 being the thing that you find most scary or that you're least comfortable doing. And then when you go into an interaction, you're going to do these physical moves, but you're first going to do number 1, the thing you're comfortable with, and then only once you've gotten number 1, you're going to do number 2. Only once you've got number 2, you're going to do number 3. So it's kind of a checklist for you to go through with escalating difficulty or things that make you nervous in an escalating way. So you don't have to just jump right into the deep end of the pool. You can kind of gradually desensitize yourself throughout the set and work your way forward. Also, this is oftentimes how it will go down in a real interaction, is you start out a little bit physical and get more physical and more physical over time. So this definitely simulates that. As you do this, understand there are certain times when you will make a physical move and it will be rejected, or maybe she'll seem a little uncomfortable. If that's the case, it's totally fine to back off, chill out, talk, hang out for a little bit longer, and then only later on try and get physical again. Also, if there's a particular physical move she seems to be not very responsive to, like for example, maybe she just doesn't want to hug you. Maybe you skip over that and go to the next one, which is maybe spin her around like a dance move or whatever it is. Skip the hug and go to the other one, because it maybe she's just uncomfortable with that particular thing. But if you get to a point where she's uncomfortable overall with physicality, back off, chill out, take your time, and only after some time has passed, go forward again. So it's this idea of 2 steps forward and 1 step back that should be ever present as you go through this exercise. Next exercise is not even actually something you're going to do, but it's going to be a choice of venue for day game. I want you to try and find a festival. Try and find a place where people are partying. Try and find a place where people are very active and animated, because that's going to force you to up your energy. It's very easy when learning day game to stay at a very low energy level, because a lot of times you can get away with it. A lot of times you're dealing with a girl in a coffee shop, it's a low energy environment, so you don't need a lot to get her attention. Or you see a girl just standing around doing nothing, very low energy. Girl walking requires a little more energy. But if this is all you've learned is especially stationary day game sets, if you don't learn to up your energy, the more difficult sets are going to be harder to get. And also, you're not going to have as much fun with things, and you're not going to expand your possibilities and horizons the same way you could if you're allowing yourself a higher energy in your sets. So I want you to occasionally, once in a while, doesn't have to be often, maybe once a month or whatever, go to a venue that is higher energy. So a festival is a really good idea. You could even try a night game venue for this sort of thing, just to expand your comfort zone one time before you go back to day game. But what I want you to do is try an environment that's higher energy. And again, I think a festival or a beach where there's partying going on, that kind of thing, just so it's a little bit more active and animated. Another one would be if there's a street that has a lot of buskers and just a big crowd and people dancing and having a good time. Anything like that. Go to an environment like that and make yourself game there every once in a while, because it's like lifting heavy weights. The point is, if you can get used to working with the really heavy weight, then the normal stuff you do in day-to-day life seems much easier by comparison. Next exercise, and this will be a challenge, is game without talking. Now, day game is very, very, very verbal. So to have an entire interaction without talking is difficult. You can try that if you would like, but you probably won't have a ton of success. What I'm suggesting you do here is game without talking for a period of, say, the first minute of the interaction, or probably an easier, maybe better one, is game without talking until she talks. So go up and be nonverbal, be fun, give gestures, give looks, that sort of thing. And then when she engages with you, only then are you allowed to engage with her. The reason for doing this is, number one, a lot of times if you're opening non-verbally, the only way you're going to be able to interact and get her attention is by doing something at least a little bit physical. So you're going to have to break that physical barrier. But also you're teaching yourself the words don't matter that much. Okay, the words don't matter. It's more about the vibe, it's more about the energy, and occasionally the physicality and the touch. All right, so this is a really great exercise for just like taking away the burden of the words. And it's kind of funny because a lot of guys think like, what do I say, what do I say, what do I say? And they think of it as this big task, and then you take away everything to say, and sometimes they actually do better. But regardless, they really value the words, and they treat them as a privilege, not a right. And they tend to, their verbal game actually be enhanced by taking it away as well. Okay, so practice this. Again, I wouldn't say do the entire interaction without talking, because in a day game environment, that's very, very difficult to do. But just don't talk until she talks, or don't talk for the first 30 seconds, something like that. Make yourself more animated and expressive. Force yourself to push that comfort zone a little bit, and it'll make you more physical as well. Final exercise I'm going to give you for physicality is open physical. So you must do something physical on the opener, whatever it is. And I'll give you 4 different physical openers that you can use. First is what I call the magic tap. This is just tap on the shoulder, get her attention, but it breaks that physical barrier. You have already touched her on the open. It's not terribly invasive, it's not creepy or weird, but it is breaking the physical barrier. You're not just walking like, hey, excuse me, can I talk to you? Like, hey, and a little tap on the shoulder. Makes a big difference. It makes you more assertive, it gets her attention, and that's very important on the open. Second one I'm going to teach you is called the claw. Claw basically is you're going to reach out, take a girl by the hand or the arm, and just gradually pull her over to you. Now be careful on this one. If you do it too hard, it can be very invasive, and if you start to do it and the girl seems very resistant, drop it immediately, because this is a fairly invasive opener for a stranger. You probably also don't want to do it so much on a moving girl in the daytime, but on a girl that's just standing around, you could potentially do it. Especially you could do this in sort of like a daytime venue that's an enclosed venue. Like if you're waiting in line somewhere with a girl, you could kind of just reach out and kind of like subtly, lightly pull her over to you, that sort of thing. It's a bit of a high-risk daytime move, but it's good to stretch your comfort zones. I would say this is the most high risk of all the ones I'm going to have you do in this exercise. Next one would be the hand of God. What you're doing here is you're going to reach out, put your hand out during the conversation or during an interaction, and allow her to take hold of your hand. And if and only if she takes hold of your hand, you could pull her in, hug her, spin her, just pull her in close and talk to her there. If she doesn't take your hand, no big deal. You're just going to drop it and continue talking as though nothing happened. But it's an opportunity to allow things to get physical very early on. So it's the hand of God. You're reaching out, giving her the opportunity to get physical, and then if she does, great. If she doesn't, no big deal. And the last one I'm going to teach you is basically the most like pickup game community move you've ever seen in your entire life. But there's a reason why it is a classic. There's a reason why it's existed for about 10 years, and that's that it is actually fairly effective, as cheesy as it is, which is the handshake spin, which is you take the girl, shake hands with her, and then once you shake hands, you spin her around like a dance move, and that immediately sets the frame of it's man to woman and not friend to friend. It's a fun interaction and not a boring one. So through that physicality, you're setting a vibe very, very early on. So your exercise here basically is to use one of these various physical opens in every single set. You have to open physically. You're not allowed to have that platonic conversation where you stand 4 feet away from the girl and never touch her. You need to break that physical barrier, even if only a little bit.